to share with you the book titled Engaging Minds in the Classroom: The Surprising Power of Joy by Michael F. Ovitz and Michael P. Ford. Our team members are Jackie Collins, Nicole Jenny, Arian Sholkoff, and Hannah Young.
Bringing joy into the classroom can create a more meaningful learning experience for students. It requires structure, planning, and purposefulness.
We would like to present you with a brief summary and review of the major themes in each chapter of our book: understanding joyful learning, assessing and evaluating joyful learning, implementing joyful learning, and using joyful learning to support education initiatives. Chapter 1: Understanding Joyful Learning. Many teachers become frustrated when trying to keep students engaged and ask questions such as, "What else can I do to make my classroom more enjoyable?" Here are some ways to get started. Things to know. Joy is an integral part of learning. Joy capitalizes on what we know about how to best motivate students. Joy enables us to build on what we know about engagement. Joy enables us to focus on the whole child. Students need to feel cared for and valued. When students are engaged, they enjoy what they are doing. Setting up joyful learning experiences. There is no one-size-fits-all model. Pay attention to what motivates particular students, including activities that students perceive to be fun as a way to motivate them and spark their learning. Motivation is diverse. Any single approach has its strengths and weaknesses. Do not use any one approach exclusively because it magnifies its weaknesses. Single approaches fail to account for changes in motivation factors over time. Mandated single approaches disarm teachers from being adequately equipped to motivate all students who happen to be their responsibility in any given school year. 5 key areas to promote joyful learning: school community, physical environment, whole group instruction, small group instruction, and individual instruction. 5 elements to be assessed and evaluated: learners, teachers, text and materials, assessments, and school-wide configurations. These are some motivational generalizations: adaptive self-efficacy and competence beliefs, adaptive attributions and beliefs about control, higher levels of interest and intrinsic motivation, higher levels of value and goals. Engagement. Closely related to motivation is engagement, which indicates that the learner is involved and immersed in an activity. Engagement involves getting students interested in the world in which they live. A glance around the room might indicate that all students are engaged with the given activity. Upon closer inspection, you may realize otherwise. 3 different types of engagement: behavioral, in which the learner actively performs activities; cognitive, in which the learner uses thinking strategies to learn content; and affective, in which the learner expresses enjoyment about learning. 4 main components of engagement. Students must be attentive. Learners pay attention to the task at hand and stay focused on it. Committed. Learners voluntarily, without any extrinsic reward or threat of punishment for not engaging, participate in a task using all available time, effort, and attention to complete it. Persistent. Learners stick with the task even when it gets difficult. Meaning seekers. Find value in the tasks that are associated with the work they are to accomplish. Remember, as teachers, our job is to engage students, not entertain them. Talking with and listening to students is a critical part of addressing engagement. Learners' identities are formed by how they want to be seen by others.
Chapter 2: Assessing and Evaluating Joyful Learning. Motivation is complex and cannot be easily defined. Evaluating the outcomes of joyful learning can be complicated. The first element we will discuss is assessing and evaluating learners. As teachers, we want to positively impact our learners' motivation and engagement. Research shows motivation, engagement, and joyful learning are impacted by 17 effective outcomes. These 17 effective outcomes are learner identity, belief in general abilities, belief in the ability to complete specific tasks, degree of expectation for success, degree of curiosity, desire for recognition from others, desire to comply with others, ability to stay involved with learning. Attraction to challenge, the importance of learning, competition against self and others, value of social involvement, personal interest, sense of locus of control, internalized reasons to engage self in task, self-regulating behaviors, and prosocial behaviors. The second element we will discuss is assessing and evaluating ourselves as teachers. We must ask ourselves 3 important questions. Do learners think they can succeed? Why do learners want to succeed? And do learners know what they need to do to succeed? As teachers, we control many of the learning outcomes for students. It is important for us to consider the effect we have on classroom contexts, subject areas, as well as topics and tasks within subject areas. Our understanding of developmental levels and the variances even within these levels, and our understanding of personal and social influences will impact our success in implementing joyful learning in the classroom. The third element touches on assessing and evaluating texts and materials. Sometimes teachers are allowed to choose texts and materials, and other times the state, school district, or administration will choose these items. It is important to understand that texts and materials always have an impact on students, whether it is positive or negative. And even though the texts and materials are the same, each learner will have his or her individual take on the lesson based on their own personal experiences. Now we will briefly discuss an element that we will only become more familiar with as we get closer to officially entering the teaching profession: assessment. Assessing and evaluating assessments. It is important to consider what we are not assessing. We must assess effective outcomes to be able to move toward joyful learning. Affective dimensions include feelings, emotions, and self-esteem. These non-cognitive skills have thoughtful and reflective components. Because what is assessed receives the most instructional attention, we need to be thoughtful in seeking out reliable ways to assess these non-cognitive skills. Currently, non-cognitive skills are what we primarily assess. Teachers tend to be more familiar and comfortable with cognitive testing. Assessing and evaluating school-wide configurations. Joyful learning in the classroom is a great step in the right direction, but if we want to help learners really achieve success, we need to see it implemented on the school-wide platform. The classroom should not be treated like a bubble set apart from the rest of the school. Joyful learning should permeate all aspects of the learning environment, meaning the entire school. Anyone entering the school building should be able to feel a sense of learning and joyous effort.
Chapter 3, Implementing Joyful Learning. Data-driven instruction is the heart of joyful learning. Even with a joyful learning mindset to improve instructions, teachers still need to be able to make sense of the data they have collected. They also need to be able to choose teaching strategies that will help them move from evaluation to implementation. Selecting the right teaching strategy or strategies to use in any given lesson can be daunting. Developing a plan that classifies teaching strategies into meaningful categories allows them to be easily used. This chapter shows you how to implement such a comprehensive plan while identifying some activities that can help you create a joyful learning environment. The third part of our joyful learning framework incorporates efforts in 5 learning environments and configuration. The first one is school community. School community, the purpose of focusing on the class school-wide community is to create a positive climate for joyful learning. The goal is to create a safe environment that supports the growth of the whole child. Focusing on the school-wide community can help students understand that their school represents how communities work outside the community to make the common good for the whole. Physical classroom environment. Identifying themselves as learners who can succeed is essential for students to grow. Identity building projects require students to actively interact with their learning and make links between what they learn and themselves, their knowledge, and their own experiences. Whole group instruction. Try to actively engage all students in a whole class lesson by providing them with multiple ways to respond to posed questions or scenarios. The basis for the structure for whole group instruction is the belief that all students can participate. Small group instruction. In small groups, students have an opportunity to talk with one another and participate in every aspect of an activity. In small groups, each participant is held accountable for completing tasks that reflect the group as a whole. This empowers students because each has information that the rest of the group needs. Students in small group settings are dependent on each other. And individual instruction. Individual instruction allows students to choose and explore topics of interest and teachers a variety of ways to encourage and implement independent student learning. The important thing to remember is that independent student work is focused on something that the individual students want to discover or explore.
Chapter 4: Using Joyful Learning to Support Education Initiatives. When it comes to achievement gaps, can joyful learning help accelerate the growth of all learners? Rather than doing different things for different learners, acceleration implies targeting specific factors for specific learners that will cause them to make greater gains. Addressing both cognitive and non-cognitive needs leads to joyful learning. Consciously using different grouping techniques, assigning independent learning projects, and introducing students to a wide variety of texts and materials all help motivate and engage students. Here are some key guidelines to keep in mind when addressing joyful learning with acceleration. Keep overall goals in mind throughout the day. If we are going to help all students be successful, that goal needs to be present in our minds throughout the school day, throughout the school week, and throughout the school year. Design whole group lessons for all learners. Because targeting instruction is more effectively achieved in small groups or individually, we need to consider whether the time devoted to whole class instruction is appropriate and whether it is engaging for all learners. Ensure that small group instruction effectively targets instructional needs. In small groups, the focus should be on teaching learners. This focus necessitates focusing on and strengthening our ability to coach learners as they work in small groups. Ensure that independent work is powerful work. We need to tighten existing individual approaches so that all learners are supported in their choice of appropriate materials and focused on high expectations before, during, and after the independent work. Because the standards call on teachers to use real content and scaffolded instruction that allows for challenge, choice, interest, and social interaction, they reflect many of the components that we have discussed as being at the heart of joyful learning. Engagement usually occurs when three key conditions are present. Learners feel that the task in front of them is within their reach. Learners value the outcome from the task. The task is completed in an environment in which the learner feels safe. If any one of these conditions is not present, levels of engagement drop. When it comes to students' assessment, researchers have found three prevalent ideas among students. Students want to be assessed all the time, not just with high-stakes tests. Students also want their progress, small and large, to be charted. They want their teachers to track their growth and to celebrate their ongoing progress. Students want teachers to use performances as a way to assess their understanding. So what is the ultimate goal? The goal is to continuously discover what children know and need to know in order to help them progress, and that is exactly what joyful learning is all about. All 4 team members highly recommend this book. From the elementary level to the secondary level, this book covers how to bring the joy of learning into the classrooms of all content areas.